All right, we're doing another one of these Homeric Rhapsody things. It's like 30 seconds after the previous one. Um, it's the story of Achilles taking the city of Eëtion's Thebe. So that I can remember the characters, let's just do a really quick rundown. We have Eëtion, king of Thebe, with his force of 100 royal guardsmen in a heavy dendra plate. We have Tecmessa, warrior queen of Thebe, who is an Amazon as well. She has 50 Amazonian women on horseback. We have Alcon, Eëtion's son, but not Tecmessa's, the farmer prince of Thebe, who commands a troop of 150 conscripted farmers. We have Keramakos, warrior prince of Thebe, who of both king and queen, who wears a ceramic mask over his face and commands a group of 200 elite warriors who are used to going out and raiding, more warlike guys, not necessarily for defense. Then they have Manning, which is the well-beloved prince of Thebe, of both king and queen, son of both king and queen. He is an archer, commands 150 archers. Then we have Mastor, who is the beautiful prince of Thebe, son of both king and queen, son of only Eëtion, who's in love with his daughter, who's in love with his sister by marriage, Hypatia, and he's a great runner who commands a troop of 100, I think 150 sort of skirmishers, lightly armored skirmishers. Then there's Pelion, the great tactician, who organized the city's defenses and also organizes a big force of like diverse sets of troops, not just like a single type that is pretty much what all the other guys do. Then there is the last one is Chromius, who is the son of only Eëtion and sort of unfavored by Tecmessa because he's the next in line to be the king, and he's been groomed to be king, even though he's not trueborn son, and she would rather one of her sons become king later. He commands 300, the biggest force, and they're sort of like proto-hoplites that he commands. Okay, here we go. Thus, when Tecmessa had heard the word of Aphrodite, under the guise of Zelia, her attendant, she was marveled, and she turned and she spoke, reining her chariot, having her charioteer bring her near the King Eëtion, saying, "My king, I have just had a message from one of my attendants, though if I be going by my own senses, I think it may be one of the Olympian gods or goddesses who spoke to me, or some messenger of theirs. Such was the bearing and the beauty that had been imbued in my humble attendant. She spoke to me and told me that I must have words with Phoenix to have some way of bringing him to our side, if only to give us information on the army we face. Perhaps not to turn him, as we know that he will never go against Achilles, who he had raised from a baby, holding at his breast and spitting up wine onto his tunic. For such is the story he had told us, and I know from having raised the children of my own that I would never go against them for anything." Thus King Eëtion heard her words, and he said this godlike winged speech: "I hear what you say, and if it truly be a god or goddess or one of their messengers that has come to you, then we must not ignore what he or she has said. I propose this. We will make camp tonight, as it's still quite a march from where we must go to the ford, and when we do so, that you go and speak to Phoenix, and you offer him your friendly thighs, and see if he might bring some of that counsel that he is so famed for, and the wisdom that he is renowned for the world over, to our army, and offer only the lineages and the fighting styles and any of that sort of information that we might want to know, though he may withhold the weaknesses and the troop numbers and anything he decides. Such would help us even more, I think, than he realizes. And thus Queen Tecmessa heard his words and knew them to be wise, for she had often offered her friendly thighs to those who would need to be allied with the Theban forces, or with her Amazons in the days when she was back in her native land to the east. And such had won her many a good counsel or a good strong right arm fighting alongside her. And thus they waited until Helios' chariot had run his course through the sky, and when all the poppies and the trees had drooped a bit, growing drowsy as the night came on, the troops had pitched their tents and made their camp, and all the common throng who fought under each of the captains had made their own areas and banquets, and merrymaking was had, for not yet had the fighting begun, and all had been excited and had been charged with that love for Ares that only those who had not yet seen the face of he who commands the battlefield, he who gluts himself on the blood and the skin and brains of men, only those who have not looked upon the face of war can feel such mirth. And so, under Selene's glow, Tecmessa made ready to go to the camp and the large tent which had been afforded for Phoenix, lord of the Dolopians, who was currently under the guard of that army of Thebe. All right, a short one, but not so bad. That too is something I've always thought was interesting. I'm glad I got to put it in there. This thing in the Cattle Raid of Cooley, which seems, it's like a very alien concept to like a modern reader, or I don't know, it's at least to this modern reader, where they describe, I read the Kinsella translation of the Cattle Raid of Cooley, and it's described multiple times that Maeve, Queen Maeve, who's like the, Tecmessa is my version of Queen Maeve from the Toyne, she offers her friendly thighs to, allied guys to try and win their loyalty, like if their loyalty's flagging, which means that she's basically going to sleep with them. And it's like fully sanctioned by King Alil. And so I thought that was like it's obviously not something that like sort of like fits into any stories that we hear in like the modern era. So it has this kind of antiquated, ancient ring to it. And it also, I thought it worked kind of well for making this, anybody who knows the stories of the Achaeans and the Greeks, like, uh, sort of like wifely fidelity is like a really big, important thing for them. That's the whole point of the Odyssey, where Penelope's fidelity is like the main, almost like the main characteristic by which she's described. Um, Agamemnon's wife Clytemnestra, after he wins the Trojan War, goes on to, it turns out she had been sleeping with his cousin the whole time, and then she murders him as soon as he comes back from having won this entire war. And Diomedes also, his wife was sleeping with some other guy, and I forget what happens to her, but he ends up going somewhere and doing this whole other thing. Um, and it sort of happens all the way down. That's like a huge sort of like, through the fact that so many of these stories deal with that, it's clearly something the ancient Greeks worried about all the time. And so I thought it would be an interesting way to differentiate the city of Thebe as like a um, exotic and like totally different culture, that they would not only not worry about that, but that the king would actually encourage it, um, and be fine with it for the queen to do, assuming that she, said she wanted to. And so I thought it fit as a pretty interesting thing to go into this story. Um, and so we'll see what happens. We'll see if that works out for them. I also got it to put in one of those little moments where like somebody has a speech and then the same speech is kind of like more or less word for word repeated again. I've mentioned that in other episodes that I think that's charming in the Iliad when it happens. It's the first couple times you read the Iliad, it's like, okay, why are you telling me the same speech again? But when you've read it enough times, you start to kind of feel this like there's like a poetry just in the repetition, and I like that. So I put that in a second time when she describes the messenger that came to her from Olympus and stuff. Yeah, there wasn't that much to this one, but I thought it was pretty good. I had this little moment where like the poppies and the trees. First of all, I don't know why I put poppies in there. It doesn't really make any sense that there would be poppies in the middle of this forest, but they almost like fall asleep and they get drowsy at night, which is like a really interesting, not really Homeric, because it's a little too like fantastical, but the idea that they're like literally falling asleep at night is like an interesting little thing. We had a nice little, not epithet, but like a stock moment where Helios runs his course through the sky. We had some nice little things where the thing I really liked was I couldn't find a good way to describe it, but so I kind of kept going in circles with it, and I wish I did it better, but it was an interesting thought where it was like all the different contingents, all the men of the different contingents were feasting and making merry, as only those who had not looked on the face of war can do. So it's like, if you imagine like Saving Private Ryan or Hacksaw Ridge, like before you get to this like big horrible combat scene, everybody's having a nice time, and they can like be excited, but then like after that it totally changes everything. So I thought it would be an interesting thing to like have the narrator describe. It's pretty clear that Homer has some experience with combat, just because of how detailed his descriptions of like people getting killed in combat are, and a lot of the logistics of fighting and stuff. So I thought it would be interesting. I don't have any experience with that, but I thought it would be interesting to put that that little detail in there, as if this Homeric narrator was trying to like almost warn them, like a person in the movie theater telling the people in the horror movie not to go into that room. He's saying like, well, they're not going to last. This excitement is not going to last. Okay, so that was that one. This with all these like intro things I'm doing now, where I have to explain every character, and then these outros, it's becoming that like the story is like this big, and the rest of this explanation stuff is way longer than the story. But it's nice for myself, for my own like getting my thoughts together to explain myself afterwards, because I feel like it helps me to understand even what I was doing and to take stock of what I came up with during that session. So, well, let's keep going with it, see what happens.